If we're not careful, we're going to be lost as humanity, and it will be taken over by a handful of humans because they control the platform, or it'll be taken over by various AI agents and AI engine by itself.
Go work in a system like fast food or Home Depot or whatever else. Learn these skills that you can go apply because it's going to help you find your purpose.
I don't think we will survive economically as a society. If we automate and replace everybody, let's not forget, the people that works for us are also part of the economy who's buying our stuff. So if nobody has any means to buy anything, then what happens?
Welcome to the Tyler Dickerhoof Show with your host, me, Tyler Dickerhoof. On today's episode, I am joined by Faisal Hoque. Faisal is back. We got to know each other several years ago through some of his other books. He has a new book out called Transcend, which is the Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI. Faisal is obviously an accomplished entrepreneur, senior executive, author, thought leader, friend. This entrance into kind of the AI space. And one of the things that I'm going to start with this question because it's too good conversationally is you're talking about how busy you are, how well Transcend has done. And I'm like, what? Do you not have enough AI pieces to like solve all your problems? And you started to laugh, and that's why I decided to hit record to fully ask you that question.
So I do have quite a bit of AI stuff going on in terms of usage, but also in terms of development. As you know, I'm in the tech business, so we are using AI to take our software platform to the next level. I use AI quite extensively for doing lots of research. I've got a research team that also does constant research utilizing different AI research tools, and then even the creative team uses various parts of various AI tools to do stuff. What I don't use, maybe I will someday. I don't have an AI assistant. I don't have my what they call the replica or twin. I don't have any of that stuff.
I hear Tony Robbins has one now. I had a friend that went to attended one of his events, and he said it was AI Tony the entire time.
Yeah. And, even Reid Hoffman plays with that, as you saw on LinkedIn. So a lot of people are using that. I'm not, I want to maintain my humanity and my authentic self.
Yeah.
And, since you have Transcend, that's basically the message. I don't think I will be I don't want to ever be completely replaced by it.
Here's the great problem I see with that is we're in such a world where AI has no bounds, for what it is. It's kind of in terms of wild, wild west. And so if I throw up an image of Tyler, somebody else does that, and I say whatever, do people start believing that? Or do I have to no, there's cow, I can't even rely on my cows walking around behind it to I'm real. Help me as you've gone through, written the book, as you go through. How are people supposed to discern what's real or not?
Well, look, this is a huge concern because, when you talk about identity, when you talk about what's real, what's not real, manipulation, privacy, surveillance, as you know, I do a lot of work with our government, all that comes in full play, right? Intellectual property rights, we're all creative people, so we're constantly creating our own stuff. All of that comes in play. And not to mention, these days, since, you and I talked last, I've gotten very intrigued by the psychological impact of technology.
Mm-hmm.
So, the whole notion of cognitive behavior, outsourcing of our thinking process, all that comes in play, right? And I am desperately trying to hold on to the authentic human element, even though I'm in tech business, as much as I can. And I don't think that if we don't do that, it's not good for humanity. I don't also think it's good for business because AI is not going to be the key differentiator for next generation businesses.
At what point did that, obviously we know, from your book, Connect, you and I, connected based upon that. But go back to, at what point did you realize that, oh, what you just said, we need to hold on to humanity as a philosophical, kind of positioning as we're going into AI, that there's really a philosophical element to this leadership with AI?
Never in human history we have had a situation where we're trying to create something that is smarter than us, and it's the collective intelligence of humanity in one, that supersede one of us or two of us or five of us. So when you look at from that point of view, there's two factors. One is that because human beings are so driven by convenience and addicted to laziness to a certain extent, we like to outsource anything and everything we can, anything hard, and thinking probably the hardest thing, we like to outsource it. So there's that danger. Another danger is that, uh, I don't know how we deal with intelligence that are greater than ours because we've never encountered that, right? And we are about to encounter that in a big way. And the third element is that this rapid uh, evolution of this technology is going to be super disruptor in terms of jobs and the type of work we do. And I don't think we have completely thought through that process. So you almost have to think about that. Is the measurement of success of AI technology, is it that does it make our lives better, and is it moving humanity faster or better, or is it that we're just automating things that doesn't need to be automated, and as a result we're going to end up creating a very unproductive society? Even, let's say, assume there's no issue of money and it's all taken care of, we don't need to work, but human being needs to be productive, right? So I don't think we have thought through all that element.
One of the places that I want to jump in what you just said, and I paraphrase this, so take it for what it is, correct it, spin it back, is thinking is the hardest activity for humans that they wish and actively try to automate and delegate and outsource. That, like, one, man, I see that with so many leaders. Like, the idea to think is like so hard. So if I have something that thinks for me, because it hurts to think, I'll go do it. And the problem that are like, well, then who's really thinking?
Yeah. So think about this way, right? I have, all of a sudden we fast forward 5, 10 years, and you have a company of 5 people. There's a CEO and there's an AI assistant. So you're telling the AI assistant, make this happen for me. I don't know how, but make it happen for me, right? So it's making it happen and making it happen, and then some, just take a crazy sci-fi idea, and all of a sudden the AI assistant decides, well, why do I need the CEO? I don't need to listen to it, right? So you're already seeing these drift. They call drift. The models are drifting and hallucinating, and so it is possible that if we are not careful, that our outsourced behavior will be reach a point where we are being dominated by this super intelligence because we have given up all our freedom and all our ability to kind of think like we have to and we had to, and we're no longer doing that, right? So that implies for individual, that implies for organization, that implies for government and society as a whole.
Well, I think about just as we're recording this, within the last week, MIT released their study based upon the effect of ChatGPT and other AI sources. Like, it's dumbed down people. And I would use a very Gen Z, is like, it's created bots. It's created bots of people that, that almost instinctively will go to ChatGPT to answer a question because they don't want to think through it.
Yeah, no, I just actually, you're funny you should mention that. Over the weekend, I wrote a piece for Psychology Today, exactly referring to that study and arguing the fact that, you can look at this two different ways, right? I mean, there's a helpful notion of using these type of technology if you want to use it for research,
Yeah.
or if you want to use it for, let's say, proofreading and that sort of a thing. But if you are giving up your freedom, and if you actually notice, you'll see that we talked about the laziness. It creeps into you because you're giving in more and more and more. So you as a person, because it's too convenient, right? So you have to take a conscious effort not to do that. But you can also not use it, because if you're not using those type of tool, you're going to be kind of behind other people because you can't produce as fast with those assistant versus. It's like, if we wanted to send a mail by, with pigeon and then by horses versus now email, right? So it's kind of like a same notion. So you have to use these things, but the question is to what extent. Here's the other rub. When if you read the things that are being generated by large language model, they are really becoming more and more generic. You see the post in LinkedIn where you see the same exact icons and same type of vocabulary, and you can pretty easily see what's generated by AI versus what generated by an authentic voice. So
Yeah.
I think that from a very pragmatic and real point of view, if you want to maintain an authentic self and if you want to have a authentic persona, then you have to kind of detach from that how much you want to give in, right? And you have to devote what's really authentically yours versus what's machine generated and driven by synthetic data versus the authentic data, which comes from you, right?
As I look in your background, Faisal, and just thinking about this, I love reading Think and Grow Rich, partly because, as that was written in the 1930s, and it was the advent of radio from print. It's like this whole new medium, and it was like, how's it going to be done? And I've thought about that the last 8 to 10 years. We see that with social media and marketing. It's like it's a whole new medium. And as I'm looking at background, I'm thinking about the paintings, and I wonder at what point was the authenticity of artwork with the advent of the printing press. You think about early manuscripts, whether it's religious books to paintings. I mean, it was painstaking. The monks that would artistry, and all of a sudden you have a book that a printing press stamps it out. It's like, oh, we don't have that. But what I think happened in society is there became a greater novelty to the original. And we think about paintings, the original, as opposed to, hey, I can get a reprint and just stamp, stamp, stamp. Do you think we'll get to that point with this AI creativity? Is like, okay, if you want the dime a dozen, go that way. But man, if you want to get something unique and different, you go to like a creative artist in business, in communication. Do you see those differentiating?
Yeah, I absolutely see it. But just like you can, if you take that writing or printing as an example, think about typewriter versus computer, right? So because of computer, writers can write better, faster, whatever you want to call it, right? Now add on to that intelligence. I don't think there's anything wrong using the faster data cruncher, a thought partner, whatever you want to call it, to do those kind of creative pursuit, right? But if you want authenticity, then you have to apply it, because authenticity is not collection of bunch of generic things. But one could argue that that maybe it will generate more authentic work because it's a collection and derivative work of many. Because as and which I have argued over and over again, that innovation comes from cross-disciplinary, cross-observation, and cross-pollination of many different things. So if you buy into that theory, you can argue that AI will generate better output than humans will generate, right? But here is where the rub comes in. And if you look at people, if you listen to people like Jeffrey Hinton, I mean, he is now going around. I know he's considered the forefather of AI, and Transcend, the very first page starts with a quote from him, right? He is arguing that if we are not, careful, we're gonna be, we're gonna be lost as humanity, and it will be taken over by a handful of humans because they control the platform, or it'll be taken over by various AI agents and AI engine by itself, right? So my argument is, I think it will we will see what happens in the next 3 to 5 years, depending on what we collectively do. And when I say who's we, I look at it as like four different players, right? Individually, what we do, right? Because that's our choice, how much we want to give in. What does this platform, when we say we are creating AI, we're not actually creating AI, because only a handful of people are creating the platforms, the technology, the large language models, the way the large language models are being, trained, whatever. Those are driven by really big techs, right? And then you look at businesses and organizations who are using these platforms to enable other type of activities or applications or whatever, which could be a business, could be a healthcare provider, could be a researcher, whatever the case may be, right? We're all kind of a participant in all that, if you are a business owner or you are an executive or whatever the case may be. And the last element of all this is the government, right? Because government has a huge role in terms of legislative and legal framework that allows us to kind of all be accountable, fair, whatever you want to call it, right? So you talked about the authentic painting versus a replica, right? So how do we ensure that something is authentic? Well, if you look at artwork, I mean, there's the creator's signature or whatever. That's how there's, in the tech world, there's lots of talk around blockchains and digital marker, et cetera, for original work that's being created and digitally distributed, right? But we don't have really legislation yet to hold people responsible, or any kind of standard. You talk about like fake. How do we know is it real Faisal or fake Faisal, right? We don't know, because we don't have any. Even though we have technological capability, we don't have the legal capability to kind of hold and produce the differentiation, right? So what will happen in next 3 to 5 to 10 years will be driven by these collective groups, which is really the humanity as a whole, what they do or what they don't do.
So if we're sitting here, Faisal, and I'm coming to you and say, hey, man, give me some advice. I lead an organization that is a creative element, and man, I want to utilize more AI, and that'll just solve my problems because they don't make mistakes. They show up like all the robotic pieces that we understand. But as we're sitting here talking, what are you saying, Tyler? Beware of this, or man, focus on that.
We actually developed a dual framework just to do that, right? So, in which we describe in Transcend, whereby we say, look, if you are pursuing opportunity, then you have to start with what we got, we kind of got creative with it, which is like there's an open framework which allows you to explore opportunity with complete radical openness, right? And open is acronym, and first word for open or it stands for outlining your purpose. So let's say you are in food business as an example. We'll use that because everybody understands food, and let's say you are in food business, and you say, what is your purpose? Is it that you want to create next Taco Bell, or you're trying to create next French Laundry, right? So if you say, look, if my goal is to create French Laundry, then I cannot I maybe use, French Laundry's allure is the fact that it's innovative cuisine and it's a limited edition, if I can use that word, and it's Tom Keller signature dishes, as an example, right? If you're Taco Bell, I want to stamp out the same taco 1,000 times over. You go to French Laundry for experience, and you go to French Laundry because you want to experience Tom Keller's cooking. You go to Taco Bell because you are in a hurry, it's cheap, it's mass production, whatever. But in both cases, if you say, I'm going to replace all my staff and all my cooks with humanoid robots, even in a Taco Bell scenario, you're going to say, I don't know whether I want to go to Taco Bell because I still crave that human contact. Maybe I want it faster, but I want the human contact. So what does that do for Taco Bell brand? What it'll do, you're going to start eliminating the customer appeal, because you can see, like, when we get a chatbot, it's a chatbot, and you're talking to the chatbot, and pretty soon it says, representative, I want to talk to a representative. I don't want to talk to you anymore. I want to talk to a human being, right? So that will happen. So you have to kind of go by your purpose. What is it that you want to put forward as an organization as a value to your customer? So that's number one. Number two is you have to look at the risk. So if you say, okay, if I want to replace all this with humanoid robots and automation, what's the risk? In that example, the risk is you're going to really start eliminating your customer appeal. As a result, you're going to have fewer customers, right? So is that what you want to do? And you have to think through, and this is a very simple example, obviously, is that risk worth it or not in terms of over automation, right? So my advice to the organizational leaders is that start with your purpose and stick with your authentic purpose that made you the brand that you are and that got you the success, and do not veer from that value. Of course, use automation to get it better at it, but do not veer from that original purpose, that authentic calling that you started your organization, as, right? And obviously, there's many nuances of that statement that I just made.
Something hitting me as you're talking about that and thinking about, like the Taco Bell where you automate, you end up having, a system that does it. You have maybe one person at the window, you have one person at the desk, everything else. And as I frame that and we think about those instances, I think about what happened in the dairy industry. So an industry that I practice a lot. I had a friend, and they changed their operation into robotic milkers maybe 15, 20 years ago, put in robots. And so one day they went from having a staff of, let's just say, 10 people. And so the manager was interacting with the staff. They had lives. Well, they got sick. They didn't show up for work. You had all of those things. And part of the either rise in employment costs or headache of managing them was we're putting in robots. So one day the manager's job is managing people. And the next day it's fixing the robots. You have to maintain them. You have to do all those things. And one of the things that I think about is the loneliness epidemic in our country. How much is it being driven, whether we recognize it or not, through the advance in AI technologies, robotics, where if I go to a fast food restaurant, it's pretty much I'm going to see a kiosk that I'm just going to put button, which is great the days that I just want to hurry. But the days that to have a conversation and just interact with someone, we miss. Like, how much are we missing out on the human experience because we're in this drive to, be bigger, faster, stronger, and not deal with the I got to think problems?
Yeah, look, I mean, and on top of all that, think about, how many people lost that job that was in that dairy farm, right? So now imagine if the pace of the automation is such, then let's say, let's take that Taco Bell example, right? Who works in Taco Bell? It's mostly young kids that are starting their high school or finishing their high school, about to go to college, or you're a college kid or whatever, right? So imagine if all the entry level jobs, and we're already predicting that most of the entry level jobs are going to be replaced, even the knowledge worker, not just manual, labor intensive automated thing, but even the knowledge workers are going to be replaced. So what happens to those people? And let's assume that the money is no longer a problem because we have some crazy way figured out how to pay, create universal, payment model for all citizens, and we have plenty of food, so we have no worries about money or economics or any of that. Which, by the way, is not going to happen anytime soon, right? It's going to get pretty bad before that happens, right? Think about human beings are driven by purpose. We need purpose. If you look at all the conflict zones on the planet, right, which I got exposed because of my government work and where I grew up, it all starts with young people who doesn't have a faith in the system or faith in life in terms of what they should be doing that's productive, that's meaningful, and they're the one who creates all this, these riots and this and that creates a conflict zone, right? So the geopolitical impact, the economic impact, the psychological impact from over automation is huge. It's huge, right? I don't think we have thought through that. As much
Let me
as we
just
should be
interject in the
thinking about it.
conversation. Like, my daughter is 18, my son is 17. I know your son's a little bit older, but
Yeah.
they're at the place of getting their first jobs.
Sure,
And
of
here
course.
in the state of Washington, it is
Yeah.
almost impossible for a
Possible to
kid
get-
under the age of 18 to get a job.
Yes.
And so it's funny. I don't know when the last time you were at Taco Bell. I'm gonna, recently. I don't know, but the Taco Bells that I've went to last, the average age of the workers, I would guess, was 65.
Yes. Yes.
And it was amazing how that shifted because, at one point, you're like, you get a job, you're in high school, you're, whatever, I'm working fast food. That's normal, like that trying out, what do I want to do? I know it's not my career, but it's a job and it's a great place for them to learn. I think the conflict that we have much in the United States is we've tried to, almost through technology, we've extracted out thinking, and we're missing out on the just, hey, go work in a system like fast food or Home Depot or whatever else. Learn these skills that you can go apply because it's going to help you find your purpose.
Purpose. Yep. That's right. That's right. So how do we? So this is my point. How do we come up with a method of teaching younger generation value of work and the working in a in an environment where you have to follow process and policies and whatever, right? So we're going to create this vacuum. That's where I said that conflicts, if you study the conflict zones and geopolitical, and if you look at the geopolitical unrest, this has been for not today. I mean, you can look at last 200 years of history, human history. It all starts with the younger generation because they want a better life and they don't have a purpose, right?
Or they can't see a pathway.
Yes, exactly. There's no opportunity. There's no pathway to opportunity. So if you look at all that, you have to, you really get very pessimistic, right? But on the optimistic side, you can say, look, because of this technology, you have an opportunity to cure things that you couldn't cure before, deadly diseases like cancer, which, as you know, I'm very interested because of my son's situation. You can think about that. You can produce enough food so that people doesn't go hungry. You can predict the climate better. You can debate whether there's climate issue or not, but at least the predictability and predictive models will get better, so you can prepare for these things better, et cetera, right? So that's where I get optimistic, right? And I can see that I am personally much more productive because of some of these AI tools than I was before, right? Just like it happens with any technology, right? I mean, as I was saying, think about the mail. I mean, sending it through pigeon versus, I send an email, you get it like next minute, right? So all that stuff, and then, there are lots of, I've started to do some work in like underserved community in Africa and whatnot. I mean, you can see how the farmers are using, since farming and you're talking about this whole dairy industry. I mean, they are multicultural, multilingual. A lot of people are uneducated, so they're using mobile phone and generative AI for communication and look at the crop and ordering the right fertilizer for that particular crop. And you don't need to read, you don't need to write. You're doing it all visually or with the voice activated generative AI type of a interface, right? So those are great things because it's going to change a whole lot of things. But at the same time, as you said, 15 years ago, the dairy farms now is managing a workforce that's no longer human workforce. It just, it's little human and a lot of automation management, right? So I mean, we already talking about the hybrid workforce because you're going to have even a knowledge management environment where you have no longer just HR, you have managers who are managing human capital versus AI workforce, right? So these are complex and complicated thing to think about.
So as you're, writing about, as you're advising in going back to your previous work, leaders, and we talk a little bit about, some of the pieces. All right, now we have to go through your framework, obviously the open or the care framework. As you're interacting with people and you're expressing, hey, you have a human element of your workforce. What is more important in that relationship today than has been in years past?
It's shifted, a great deal. The conversation has shifted a great deal around, okay, are we really moving forward or are we moving backward, right? And there are people, leaders who are very much frozen because many of them are not even familiar with the things that are happening and things that are coming because they're not tech savvy. They're just not. This is not their forte. They're just saying, "Oh, and many people are thinking, "Oh, it's going to be just like another IT thing." So I'll let my CIO or CTO think about it, etc., etc. Right? But there's also economic pressure because how do you compete with your competition if they are much better at predicting, producing, distributing, etc., etc. So it's a real conundrum, and the reality is, as much as we talk about it, people who are in the know, and people like me who are in the tech, who are in tech business and enthusiastic about it, we talk a lot about this, but that doesn't mean that organizations are also adapting these things as quickly. But you can already see, like, I don't know, you're talking about this, that study. There's also, like, if you look at last 2 weeks, Amazon has laid off a bunch of people because of AI. Microsoft is about to lay off a bunch of people because of AI. It's happening, right? So it's a challenging environment. I would say it's economical, it's cultural, and it's technological. So the leaders have to really think through what's most important, and they also have to figure out how to survive, right? Because you won't survive if you're not using any of this stuff. So there's a fine balance between all of this, and there's also risk involved, right? So when I'm trying to work with organization and including my own business plan, I'm trying to balance that human element with technological element. I don't think we will survive economically as a society if we just, I mean, if we automate and replace everybody, then let's not forget, the people that works for us are also part of the economy who's buying our stuff, So if nobody has any means to buy anything, then what happens, right?
And I think that, whether it's a small piece or a large piece, we've seen where states have, increased the minimum wage. And so what happens? Well, I go back to the dairy farm. What was one of the reasons why they went to robotic milkers is because the minimum wage, rose to a point. It's like, oh, now it's a technological switch. I need to replace. I'll go that way. We, did that in fast food. And so all of a sudden you have an 18 an hour, minimum wage. And you're like, I can put in a robotic kiosk instead of having 8 different employees that were going to like that. Just, it forces it. So like, it's not legislation that's going to fix that. I think it comes back to, from a leadership perspective, of understanding how can we, where is the human element necessary. It goes back to what you said earlier in French Laundry. It's like, hey, those human touches people want. So go do more of that. We can run our printing press over here, but let's go find more actual painters, because we need a balance of both. As I was reading Transcend, I thought about this. Like, all right, much like yourself, you just need more AI partners so you can, relax and enjoy yourself and do more podcasts with friends. And I thought about that. It's like, all right, getting to the point where an automation of a business allows for more recreation. So if that allows for more recreation, what do we need? We need more pool boys. We need more servers. We need more, like hotel. We need more of that industry, because now all of a sudden people have more free time if they choose it, because they have so much of their life automated. So as I come back to the leader, I think what you're getting at here is be proactive and think. But I also think there's a great opportunity for leaders that don't disavow the human side, but say, how can I maximize the human side? What pivots can I make that I'm going to give my my business a strategic advantage by that? So what about you? What are your thoughts as you hear that, or you've thought through it?
Now, look, I mean, a business model, even for me, is shifting, and I mean, we are doing a lot more with lot less people. But I'm not looking into how can I replace my people. I'm looking at how much more can we do with the same people, because I have this technological advantage, right? So this is where it goes back to purpose. What's your purpose? What do you want to do? And then you have to adjust that purpose or enhance that purpose utilizing the technological things that you have. So for example, this is a real example that I was with a private equity fund in London, and they have these whole slew of portfolio companies. One of the companies happens to be a company that produce the various product for farmers, right? And that was a real example of their using this generative AI, a simple generative AI application that their farmers can access to match up the crop condition with the different kind of farming products that will help the farmer to enhance their output, right? So that's a great example of using technology to create a more connection with your customer and more sales and accurate sales because of technology, right? Because it's not like old days that farmer needs to read through specs and whatever.
Or you have a consultant come that goes through all that.
Exactly, right? It's very visual, very interactive with natural language. Communication that wouldn't been possible otherwise, right? So you can explore new market, you can explore new opportunities, you can produce things a lot faster with the same amount of people. So I challenge the business leaders and organizational leader, because this applies even in the government, that think about technology as an enhancer for your people, not just who can I replace, because you do have opportunity to do a lot more than you would have had 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So that's all the positive side. it's like a dual mentality in Transcend, as you've seen. You can be very optimistic, or you can be very fear, driven, paralyzed by fear, thinking what's going to happen to the planet.
Yeah.
All we can do have a positive outlook and look at these type of technology as an enhancer and as a positive, but we cannot not forget the negative element that's also comes with all this, and we have to prepare for this.
I think that to me, it's being realistic. Whether it's the Stockdale paradox of, name of Jim Stockdale being, hey, just be real here. And I think that's what you point at is there's great advantage, but there's also, man, there's a lot of risk, not in the sense of, oh, we do it and it's going to go wrong. More of like, no, this is what happens. There's a energy cost to AI that I learned from a friend of mine is like, if you do a ChatGPT compared to Google search, it's 10 times the amount of energy.
Of course, because it's computing power, it's data crunching, right? I mean, it's all those, GPUs are hogging, electricity.
Well, it's like the people that think I buy an electric car and I'm using no energy. It's like, no, you're just displacing it. Like it's getting generated somehow, some way. It's not a net. It's not a
net zero.
Positive. There's still a cost there. And I think as we've discussed this, and whether it's the future of AI, and it's here, but the management of it is going to require more of leaders, not less.
100%. And if you, as you've seen in Transcend, I mean, which we talked about repeatedly, you and I talked about even our last podcast, the need for empathy, the need for mindfulness, the need for creative thinking, the need for self-awareness, all that is only going to be enhanced. So for example, think about a healthcare provider designing a health portal, and you are designing it so that a chatbot reads out the result of your test that you have done it, right? You can be thoughtful about it, or you can be just mechanical, right? So being thoughtful requires thinking, because you don't want a patient 3:00 at night go to your health portal and learn that your test is inconclusive and contact your health provider immediately. You want more empathy than that. You want that automated AI agent to tell your patient that, look, we don't know all the answers, so and so is going to talk. But see, that designing of that message with empathy for an organizational leader that are basically directing to create those things requires more thoughtfulness than it would have otherwise. Right? And again, that's a very simple example, but you can see how it can get very complicated and very out of control if you don't think. I think we have to be more human in this AI driven world.
Which is again, it comes back to the byline of unlocking humanity in AI, but it's like everything in our society has said we need to be more human, not less. And it's the element of what you said. It's helping people find purpose. It's being, authentically you, and yet embracing others to do the same, and not saying, I don't have all the answers. And it's just kind of like the curiosity, the empathy, the willingness to say, man, I don't know the answer, but let's go find it. And I think that's something that in the past, maybe there were generations like, man, the leaders got to have all the answers. And now today it was like, I don't think, coming back to what you said, it's like, technically we're over the moon. Like, forget about it. I don't know the answers. There's going to be a new answer tomorrow. But if I say, Faisal, let's go work at it and find it together, that's fun, as opposed to I have to know all the answers before I ever engage with you. That's lonely, and you're going to be, you'll stall out because you'll never have it.
Right. Look, I mean, there's this need for learning and need to unlearn, and that humility to say, I don't know it all, right? And being able to collaborate with not just the human resources, but also with these technical resources, this is a major mind shift than nothing like we have seen before. Because I mean, what do we expect out of leaders? They know the answer. They know they're direct. They tell you, and you march on that drumbeat. If anybody tells you that that's the case today, they're really being delusional, right? So as leaders, I think those softer skills, driven by humility and driven by humanity, has never been more critical than it is right now.
Do you think, and you wrote a little bit about this in your book, do you think that is a cautionary beacon for agentic AI?
Yeah, of course. I mean, like, look, again, a very simple, uh, let's say take a consumer example that most of us can relate to, right? Okay, imagine this scenario, right? I don't know, I'm talking to you on some messaging software, and then, I'm saying, okay, Tyler, let's get together and watch a concert, right? Bob Dylan is playing. Let's go check out Bob Dylan, right? And then you say, well, let's invite a couple of more people. So you invited two more people on your chat, and then it's okay. I said, okay, guys, I'll take care of this. So so I said I will take care of it. So traditionally, what I would have done is I would have looked at, okay, tell me what dates are available, blah blah blah. But now I'm assigning an agent, AI agent, that goes around and says, okay, I'm gonna get to my device and find out my calendar first. I'm going to look up my credit card information, and I'm going to go to a procurement site to buy the ticket, and I'm going to go on and get the calendaring information from all my friends that are just invited. I'm going to get their name. Imagine the amount of private data I have to access as the AI agent to make that happen. So there's a two element to it. First, you, meaning me in this scenario, since I am as the one who's proposed this and courting it, have to be willing to give up all the privacy of my data that resides on multiple application, multiple environment, and I have to be able to willing to have my friends do the same thing because the agent is going out there. So in that scenario, the privacy element of it becomes huge because you're surrendering all. I mean, we are already like overshare all our information to whatever. We don't think twice what we're putting on websites, and including our social security, passport, God knows what else, right? And now you're basically get gone one step farther, where you just handed over your life to a AI agent. So the security breach, the misinformation, manipulation, all that is going to get to the next level, right? So you have to be conscious as an individual, and now you take it to the organizational level, and you say, okay, what information is really private and what information is really public. So do I really manipulate those information? Do I put it in public domain? Do I put it in my server? Et cetera, et cetera. Those conversation becomes very, very critical.
As you were telling that example, and what I sat and thought about as you were going through all of the release of information, I thought about, well, what if it's me, it's you, it's Alex, and we're trying to coordinate this, and I have a call that's at 5:00 the night of the concert, and your calendar looks at my calendar without learning. It's like, well, that fits in there, but I'm like, I know that's not enough time. And as you and I talk about, it's like, hey, Tyler, we have these options. All right, hey, Faisal, I can go, but I'm going to be a few minutes late. Oh, no problem. We'll just go. Like that human coordination that happens with empathy and relationship, when you agentically release that, then you become the acceptor of whatever, and maybe you're like, hey, I'm cool not like being like, no, I want to be there like for the very first introduction of the DJ that like I got to be there for all of it. And you're like, I don't care, we can be there when Bob Dylan starts that. And again, that agency of personality, and it's kind of like tongue in cheek right now.
That's right. This is exactly when we were talking about outsourcing. It's like gradually giving up. I mean, we talk about what is humanity, right? Humanity first is about freedom. And the freedom is driven by love, your love for whatever, right? Your love may be that I want to experience the whole aspect of the concert. My love may be that I don't care about anything. I just want to go when Dylan starts playing, right? So whatever the case may be, right? So, but see, that's the choices. So if you are now letting all that choices handed over to somebody else to manage, you no longer have that freedom. And then you can start questioning, okay, well, so are we now less of a human because we no longer have that choice?
Not to go too deep in the rabbit hole, but that really comes down to autonomous cultures and non-autonomous cultures where like you end up becoming, it's like Star Wars and like, no, everything looks the same, acts the same, is the same, because that's whether we wanted that to happen or by outsourcing all of that, we get there. And then that internal human desire to be human, we're watching it in our society, as you said, with the uprising being lost. Do we understand the source of it?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's already happening. Okay, you get an email, you can already say, okay, craft me a response, right? You don't have to think about it, right? So when it's crafting the response, you're losing the tone. Exactly what you just said. That, well, I haven't thought through. I mean, I know the recipient is Tyler. I know Tyler. My response to Tyler is going to be different than somebody I don't know. But the chatbot doesn't know that,
Yeah.
or the AI engine doesn't know that.
Without learning it. They can
Without
learn
learning it, right?
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not the same. I mean, you're not.
Yeah.
You're outsourcing yourself, right? So,
which I think goes into, it's like everyone's had this, like, don't have conversations that need to be face to face on a text, because it just doesn't come across. You understand the first couple times, like, why are they mad at me? Like, he responded like that. Well, what do you mean? And as opposed to, hey, Faisal, and we've all been through that. And I think this comes back to, it's the great challenge in leadership. If don't be like that, because everyone wants a human. And if you can be that human leader, you will have people that will perform like they've never performed with anyone when you give that human touch. But if you wanted to be devoid of it and kind of like this very vanilla, cold hard, then you're going to get that result from your workforce. And I think, as we've talked about here, the pathway forward is more human, more empathy, more care. I would say almost at the expense of thinking as a leader, I need to know technical.
yes.
Like, you need to have enough to know yes or no, or have advisors yes or no. But if, I don't need to know more technical to get the more out of my staff. I need to understand what's important to them, their purpose, interact with them and lead them from a human point of view, not like, hey, I need you to do a better job of writing code because, there's a better way. It's like, dude, tomorrow there's a system that will figure out an even better way. I'm already behind.
Right. I think that, so, this is what I tell my the technical staff who has written codes for years and years and years. I said, your job is now to become a product person, a product manager, and a human interface designer, not the coder. So shift your mindset to do that. So think about how other person is going to feel, react, receive, right? So those are human skills. Those are not technical skills. So this applies for everybody. It's not just a leader. It applies for individual. You talked about your children. The same with the next generation and the current generation, right?
I talked to a guy yesterday who's a sports performance gym owner. And he is at that exact thing because as we talked about, you're no longer leading athletes, you're leading your coaches. And that's the evolution of your business. And it's kind of like, you can no longer do it. And we've faced that in so many businesses. That's what's affecting, the tech industry and so many others. Like, it's no longer the technical, it is the human. And I think if I go back to colleges, if I go back to university, high schools, it's like, man, the technical stuff, yeah, have an understanding. But man, if we're not really, really, really focusing on the human stuff, the personal interaction and how to do that well, you're in trouble.
Right, and and this is the paradox, right? The paradox is that because you have the convenience of less thinking and less doing, you should force yourself to do more thinking and more doing. And if you don't, this is how you're going to become obsolete, right? And that obsolescence is not because you haven't caught on with the technology, because obsolescence will come because you're using the technology too much, and as a you're outsourcing yourself. Right?
You described it. That is the paradox we're in.
Right.
It's either, you do and you get behind, or you don't and you get behind. And so which is it? Yeah. Faisal, as we wrap up here, just one last thing is, where can people, one, get your book? Where can they learn more about you, all the things you do? Help direct them.
Sure. I mean, you can find the books, all the books in all the bookstores, whether as Amazon and Barnes and Noble, wherever the case may be. And they're hardcover and ebook and audiobooks about, so that's that. And as I was mentioning, as you know, the books are all for charities for cancer research. So if you're buying a book, you're not going to just learn something. But also, we'll be helping out with that particular cause. You can find about me on faisalhoque.com, but as you know, I do daily posts on LinkedIn. That's kind of my go-to social platform. I also post stuff on X, but if you're a professional and you're kind of in that genre, then LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me.
Thank you so much. Thanks for hanging out with me again. I appreciate watching you, learning from you, and everything you share. And for everyone watching, thank you so much for being here. If you could hit the subscribe and the bell, that way, whenever you watch this on YouTube, you can be notified. You can make sure whenever we drop new content. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever else, if you could rate and review this episode, it will help more people find impactful leaders like Faisal. Until next time, choose to lead with impact.